All right, hello. We'll get started in a few minutes, but if you are out there, I realize I forgot to send out one thing that would be good to have for today is if you want to print out a picture of an animal. That'd be really good. That's helpful when creating our little guys. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. If you don't have a picture, that's okay, but it really helps make our animal shapes. And if you can scale it to about the size that you want to make your finished product. So you can see this little dog is not quite scaled to this dog, but that's what I'm going to work on making today. Probably just the head part. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Hello out there. It's kind of hard having a picture of my face and what I'm working on at the same time, so I'm going to focus on what I'm working on. And it is 3:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be using our paper clay, and if you ever run out of paper clay, remember that you can order more on greenroadpottery.com. And we are going to be working on making an animal. Now, this animal was made by a younger kid, and you can already see it's already painted, but you can sort of see that it has that dog shape. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about how to mold an animal to make it look like how you want it to look like. And one of the key things in doing that, and one of the biggest misconceptions about art in general and about how artists work, is that artists don't use any guides, or they don't use everything's from memory, or they're just naturally good at whatever it is. But if you see a perfectly straight line on a painting, chances are they used a guide to make that perfectly straight line, or use tape, or use the same tools that you might use at home. And when they're making a sculpture, they may make it live from whatever they're looking at, but they'll also take pictures and often use pictures. And pictures can be very helpful in remembering details. So especially as you're beginning, don't try, if you're trying to make something look really good, even if you're trying to make it not look exactly like a dog or exactly like a cat or exactly like a horse, because I have a horse one here too, still start with a picture. It's really helpful to start with a picture. So I'll give you time to find one or print one off, or whatever. I apologize for not sending that out ahead of time. And once you have a picture, try and scale it to sort of the size that you want. So you can see how this dog here is way different scale than the picture that I printed off, right? That's because this was made without a picture. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a shape, and I'm just going to do about this much. And I'm going to use this picture as a guide to get my proportions, to look at how this neck widens as it makes this the neck of the dog, and how long the snout is. And yes, the mouth is open, so maybe I'll make it open, or how big the ears are in proportion and where they sit on the head. And noticing those things, it's really good to start with an exact placement of where those are, and then modify from that exact placement if you want to create your own thing. But let's say you want to make something mythical. Let's say you want to make a dragon, or you want to make a unicorn. Still, go get a picture, go get a drawing of that dragon, or draw your dragon first and get it right, and then use that as a model. So if you want to draw your own mythical animal, your own creature, go ahead and draw it exactly how you want, so you can use it as a template. And so how are we going to use this as a template to make our animal today? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of my clay, and I'll maybe take about this. Now, this is a 4-ounce piece of clay. I think most people out there started with 1 pound. So this is a quarter of what you started with. So I'm just going to take about 2 ounces of it. Right, and cut that. So I'm just going to start with 2 ounces. And I have my water. We're not going to need a rolling pin today. And I have my fork for texture. I have a pencil. Both sides of the pencil work well for texture, or you can have a sharpened pencil, which can work well for the texture as well. And if you had stuff left over, if you put it in a bag, and you can see this is clay left over from last time, and you can still see how it's really soft, right? I can still squish it. And this holds for a really long time. And if it's not quite, then you just add a little bit of water. All right, so how am I going to use my picture here to start to make my dog head for what the animal that it is that I want to make? Some of the things I'll notice before I start is that since a dog is a predator, we can see the eyes are looking forward. So predators have their eyes looking forward. Things that are prey or get eaten often have their eyes looking sideways, which is why on a horse, right, you can see the eyes are looking sideways. They're not actually looking forward. And because they aren't a predator, they have to look for everything their prey. And then you can see what proportion the nose is and how big the snout is and where the mouth is. Notice how much bigger the top of the mouth is than the bottom of the mouth. So that's something to notice when you're making this dog. Now, I actually am surprised by this picture. Look how big the ear is in proportion to the whole head. So that's something that surprised me on this picture. And if you want to go ahead and make the legs, you absolutely can make the legs and make the whole body. But I like to start with the most important part, just this head part first. And then we can go ahead and add on something else. Because as soon as you get to long, skinny things like legs, you start to get stability issues. And one of the things that you can do with this paper clay is you can make a lot of it, or you can, maybe minus the ears, minus legs, and you can glue those on later. You don't have to make them all at once. Or let's say you want to put a bow on there, you want to put, a saddle, and you want to have someone riding your horse or riding your dog, right? You can put that all on later. You don't have to do that right now. All right. So what I'm going to do with my 2 ounces of clay here is I'm going to squish it, right? I'm going to make it sort of like that. And I'm going to look at my picture and know that it's generally going to be tapered, right? A little bit like that. But what I can do is I can set it right on my picture. And I'm going to squish it right on my picture. And so what I'm doing is you can see I'm starting to cover my picture with my clay. And I know you have to go a little bit with what you know. Like that a dog's nose is skinnier than its head. So I'm going to start pinching some of that clay a little bit skinnier as we get to the nose. Let me turn it around so I can see it a little bit better. Right? But I'm going to have to push up. Right? I'm pushing up here because I can't see the picture underneath here. So I'm like, oh, well, that must be skinnier, right? So I'm going to keep pushing up until I can start to see my picture up here. And then I may have ended up with way too much clay. So I'm just going to press it on there. And I'll press it where I can't see the picture, or press if I see the picture coming out, then I'll press a little bit more clay down. Right, so I keep doing that. And so now you can sort of see on my picture that I've pretty well covered my shape. And if we take the picture away, right, it already sort of has that doggish look. So what are the things that we noticed now that we've taken it away the picture? After using the picture, we've noticed that it has this forehead here, right, which we can see, and that's where the eyes are going to be. You can already see its snout. Now this we know is going to be open because we're going to cut a mouth there. The ears aren't defined, but look, we've been able to get this nice tapered shape for the head. And that may be something that you didn't realize when you were making your dog, exactly how that shape is going to be. And of course, this side is flat because I was pressing on it. So now that I have it off the piece of paper, now I'm going to try and maintain that profile. So now working on the flat side, I'm going to try and push some of that clay up, keeping the profile, right? But I'm going to try and push some of that clay up to round over that other side. And if I need to add in a little bit more, I can work from the top. And after I do this adjustment of rounding it over, then I'm going to compare it again. So you can see my nose maybe getting a little long, right? lost my forehead a little bit. But those are some of the things we want to pay attention to ahead of time so we can notice them as things change. So I'm going to pinch this side in, and you can see that side's not looking as nice as that side because of how I'm pinching it in. Maybe I'll get a little bit of water in this crack. So I can pinch and smooth that together. And now you'll notice we'll leave this solid. And this can stay solid. Unlike clay, you don't have to worry about air pockets. So you can leave your clay solid. So now I'm going to start smoothing it, looking from above. Maybe I'm going to widen it out a little bit, right? Because we know that the dog will have broader shoulders. And it is good to be familiar with your subject a little bit so you can pick up some of those things that you can't necessarily see in a 2D picture. All right, so now that I've sort of rounded both sides, right, so they're sort of round, I'm going to recompare it to my image here. Let's see how I changed. So you can see that it's not quite lined up anymore, is it? So you can see this got too skinny. You can see that the nose doesn't quite fit. So with that there, I'm going to press up to re-get that, to re-thicken my neck, but yet keep it rounded. So I know that that needs to press up, right, to get that neck re-thickened. So then I can compare it there. And you can see how I'm starting to thicken that neck up so it matches. Now you can see I've pretty much lost the lower jaw, and that's okay, but because now I know I can cut this here and bring it down. The other thing that I can see when I compare it here is that I've lost a little bit of the top of the forehead. You can see on this picture how the forehead comes up, and then it's sort of the forehead here, it's a little too sloped. And so now I can pinch that in a little bit. And notice that I've completely left off the ears, and that is perfectly okay, right? All right, so there we go. Now I have a little bit of my forehead. All right, so the other thing to look at, and the reason why I printed my picture out in black and white, I forgot to mention that, but is that you can start to see some of the different textures and some of the muscle groups, and that is easier to pick out in black and white than it is if you print out a color picture. It just removes the color shading as an issue. All right, so we have the shape now, and we're going to round it over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut here, because remember how I looked at my picture, the top of the jaw is bigger than the bottom of the jaw, right? So we're going to open that up a little bit. Right, I'm going to open that up a little bit, and then I'm going to compare it, and I'm going to say, you know what, that's a little bit long, right? And the other thing to notice is how the nose isn't square at the front. So you notice how it starts to taper? So this is why you want to keep referring back to what you're trying to make as opposed to just free-forming it, because you may look at this and say, what's not quite right? I don't know what's not quite right, but it doesn't look quite right, right? You can tell, but now you can see how thick the jowl is and how it tapers, and see how mine is really straight. So you want to start paying attention to some of those things. So I'm going to, right, start to thicken it a little bit. And there we go. So now we're starting to get some of that look. And then we'll take the pencil, right, and start to add a little bit of definition there, maybe a little bit of water. The piece doesn't want to stay on there. Right, so we're going to go now. See, we're starting to get a little bit of definition. Then we can look at the front. And this picture doesn't show us the front, but we know that it's flat because this is a predator. So his eyes are going to be looking forward, right? But even a dog has some eyebrows. You can sort of see how the eyes are inset a little bit. So we're going to do a similar thing that we did with the face that we did last time. And that is we're going to just use our pencil, roll it a little bit, right, to start to get those eye impressions. And then our dog may look a little bit evil with that sort of angular look, but now we can bring it forward just a little bit, right? And that might be something that we painted afterwards, or we'll just put some little dots in, right? And then we can start to draw make some marks, and this is something that we might paint, and the nose is going to be out in here. Now we're dealing with 3 dimensions, right? So you do have to go all the way around. And that's just going to define that edge. So it will help us when we paint it. And if you've already started to paint your projects, know that if you don't like your paint, you can always redo it. You can always paint over what you've already painted. All right, push that back a little bit. And then dogs have some big nostrils, so we'll go ahead and stick those guys in front. And then close it down a little bit. Right? So we're starting to get our guy. Now you can say, ooh, what's now? I haven't compared it to my picture in quite a while. And look how much longer my snout is than my picture. Now, if you've happened as you press and you do all that sort of stuff, you say, well, maybe that's why it looks well. This could just be a different breed of dog than this retriever that I did. Well, let's say I'm really trying to get this retriever. Well, there's nothing wrong with if you have some extra clay because you've squeezed it and you needed to thin it. Well, we did a one practice, so let's, we cut them off. But now maybe we're gonna have the shape that we want, right? The length that we want by pinching that just a little bit. All right, our first nose was just a practice nose. Right, and now maybe we have that shape a little bit better. So now we put in the mouth a little deeper. I'm going to go with my sharpened pencil. With my sharpened pencil, I'm going to redraw in my nose. All right, so now we're a little bit closer to what we had before. All right, so now let's look and see where else we're not doing very well. We can see our head may not be quite exactly how we want it. It's a little bit broader and flatter at the top. So I'm going to just push some of that clay up, make a little bit broader and flatter head. And what I'm doing here is I'm just looking at my image or what I'm making, looking at my image and looking what I'm making and comparing them. Because when you draw whatever shape you're drawing, and you're making whatever you're making, when you're pressing and pulling and modeling, it's easy for things to be pressed on that you're not expecting to be pressed on or you're not counting on being pressed on. So you always want to refer back to whatever it is that you're using as a reference, because that it's easy to get mixed up or to not realize what you're doing. Now, one of the other nice things about cutting some of this off is now I have some ears. So you can go ahead and see the shape of the ear on there. And if I want to, I can set that guy aside. And I can use my picture here. And I can sort of see what the ear looks like. So I'm going to press, make an ear that matches. We know it's pretty thin, right? Because we've all seen a dog before, right? So we're going to make an ear that matches that. And then this other piece isn't quite big enough, so I'm going to get a little bit more. Set that aside. I'm going to make another one for the other side using the same guide. And again, if this is something that you've created yourself, picture, go ahead and use it as a guide. Get the shape the same, you can keep pressing on it. And just remember that you're going to inverse it, because even though we're pressing them both the same, one's going to be on the other side. Right, so now, whoa, so on the person how we said we needed to skip the ears because it looked funny. But look how much that ear really makes a dog look like a dog, right? An ear is a big part of what the dog is. And so you can just see how that ear is on there. All right, so I'm going to dip my ear in some water. I'm not going to have it stick out just because I don't want it to break off. So I'm going to just dip it in water, then gently smooth back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But it does have some definition at the top, and we can see that from our picture. So we're going to use my thumb and give it some definition. You can see down at the bottom, you don't have to smooth it all the way. If you want to, you can take your knife and lift it up a little bit. All right, now we're going to go ahead and add one to the other side. Same idea. I'm going to gently smooth it. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Gently with some water. Lift it up a little bit. The back of my fingernail. I always like using my hands. Have the best tools. Your fingernails and your fingers. Give it that little bit of an indentation. All right, now we're getting somewhere, right? Now we're getting somewhere. And we don't have a picture from the front, but you can now, let's look from the front and let's see, well, what looks not quite right in the front, right? Maybe it looks like this is a little bit thicker, and in our 2 dimensions, we couldn't see how thin this section was, but again, we've seen a dog, so we sort of know. So you might want to pinch that in a little bit because the dogs have strong jaws, and that jaw muscle is going to be up in here. So we're going to bring that and make sure that that's a little defined. And most animals have strong jaw muscles, so they often have a bulge right in here, which would be the jaw muscle, right? So that they can chomp on things. And if you've pressed in too far, like over here, and it just doesn't have enough of that little bulge, or over here it doesn't have a little bulge, you have this extra clay, just get a little bit of clay, get some water on it, stick it on there, and smooth it. And we don't, with this paper clay, we don't have to worry about air pockets. Stick that on there. Use my pencil. Get that to bulge up a little bit. We'll get it smooth, just back and forth and back and forth. Give ourselves some cheek muscles, and it probably would have been a good idea to do that before the ears. I just didn't think to notice to look at it from the front before. And then we want to go back and we'll compare it to our picture. Right, and you can see pretty close still, though we've started to pinch in a little bit, but on the body, so that would spread out a little bit more. So we might want to have the dog sit like this, so maybe we don't want all this part down here. So then we're just making a head. So cut that off. Okay, so my head will sit like that. Then making a dog. Now, this is the basics. As it sets up a little bit, then you can start to shift it. You can start to adjust it. Painting will do a lot. You can see I have the eyes are going to just be some impressions to give that shadow, and because they'll have the eyebrows. Right, so I'm going to press that in a little bit more. Or you can use the back of your eraser. Right, press that in a little bit more. Right, to make sure your dog is looking forward. You press the nose down a little bit more. All right, so and you'll just keep working on it. How people do really good sculptures is they'll just keep working and working and working and adding little bits on and working and working and working some more. It doesn't just magically happen instantly. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of knowing innately what shapes you're looking for, observing, drawing. Drawing is a really good practice to whatever shape you're going to make. Is you're going to want to making some drawings of it really can help because you start to learn where those muscle groups are, right? We'll do that if we want to. On the inside of the mouth, you can know there's a tongue, so we can use your knife and press to make a little impression there, right? And you know the top of the mouth is maybe a little hollow, so we'll press up there. Most of the time, the dog jowl will hang over the top teeth. You often don't see the top teeth, but maybe you want to add some bottom teeth, and you can certainly do that. And how I'd actually do that, as opposed to if you want to add some bottom teeth, as opposed to adding the teeth on by taking a little bit of your clay and sticking it on, I would use some of the clay that's here, and you're going to take your knife. I'll see if I can do it backwards here. You're going to take your knife and just lift up a little bit of clay. Right, so I just cut in a little bit, and then that little piece that I created, I want to use my sharp pencil. Just going to push it up and push it down. You have to be really gentle, and then I'll push it from the inside. Right, so what I'm doing is I'm pulling a little bit of that clay, trying to keep it from, right? See how I'm starting to get the tooth in there? But you can see the smaller the pieces that you're trying to do, the more delicate the work is. So sometimes creating the tooth in general is good, and it will push it up a little bit. And it's something that you should refine as it starts to dry out a little bit more. Or again, it's something you can add in afterwards if you make some little teeth. So we did one side. We'll go ahead and I'll use my knife to cut up some clay on this side too. I have my sharp pencil. I have a dull pencil and a sharp pencil, so let's grab the sharp pencil for this. I'm just working, and so you can see small little bits require lots of little delicate work. And so you can see I've started to create some teeth there. And a lot of this, there will be some texture difference up here in the face. A lot of this will be painted on too, as you paint on the black for the nose or paint in some darkness for the eyes or do some other sort of stuff. And if you want to have it, after you do that, you can always close it a little bit. All right. And now it could be that you want to have a whole body attached on, and you can see this ended up being pretty big. But if we want to do the whole body, which I'm not gonna go through the whole thing right now, but it's the same idea. The reason why I did the head is because the head is by far the most complicated. There are the most little pieces and little bits to do. But you would do the same thing as I would work not the whole thing at once. I would do this head part, and then I would do this body part, and then I'd attach them after they were a little bit dry. So that's how I would finish sculpting the rest. And so by setting this on, and this may be too big, this may not be enough clay, because you can see already that it's like that. And you can even do it in parts. And I would do it this, and then I would do the legs separately and attach those on. And again, long, skinny things are going to be hard in clay because they don't have any structural strength when it's wet. But with paper clay, it's a little bit easier because you can form the leg, form the body, let them set up a little bit and attach them. And if they do ever break off, then you can always glue them back on, or you can even glue them on separately, although then it's harder to blend in everything. Now, this is solid, so it's going to take a lot longer to dry. One of the ways you can have it dry a little bit more easily, and it wouldn't matter if you're going to attach this onto something, is after you're done, let's say you're just going to leave it as a head like this, you'll just take your pencil, just like we do with pottery. Now this will dry twice as fast when we do something like that. So, oh, I forgot to put, I should have said something. I forgot to put the nostrils back in when I cut his nose. Right? We'll flatten that a little bit. Right, so we'll be ready to paint. Now, next class, we will go over some of the painting. I'll show you some of the different ways you can paint it and make it shiny. So go ahead and paste it, which is getting some lacquer. You can go over and you can get it in a spray can, or you can get it as a painting project. And we'll go over some painting techniques, and we'll go over some beads. Remember, if you've painted it once, You don't like how you painted it, once it's dry, just paint over it again. No big deal. It's a really easy way to do that. So again, I sculpted the head using a picture. If you want to sculpt a bird, if you want to sculpt a cat, if you want to sculpt, really go for a picture. If you can get a picture from the front and you can get a picture from the side, that can really help because you can make a lot of assumptions about what something looks like, and they're just not true, right? They're just not true assumptions of what something actually looks like. And having a picture to go off really helps if you're trying to create something that looks pretty good. And now, if you wanted to make this crazy by adding spikes on and doing all that sort of stuff, then this gives you a good foundation of how to do that. So, thank you very much for watching. If you ever need more clay, you can just let me know as we keep doing this, as I keep working on what other sorts of projects and techniques and different things that we can do. You always send me an email, brooke@greenroadpottery.com. If there's something specific that you want to know, or if you have some question of something that you want to know, I'm all will answer your question that way, or I'll answer it on the next session. So we'll keep doing these throughout the rest of May. I'll continue to have the supplies here. And I would hope, go ahead and send me an email of some of the things that you've made. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time with some paint. We'll make some beads and we'll paint up some stuff, and I'll show you how to do some of those different things. All right, thanks a lot. See ya.